So I made a video a few days ago posing a very simple question. Is Islam Makhachev a better striker than Alexander Volkanovski? Because as everybody knows, going into their first fight, the general consensus was if Volk can keep the fight standing, he wins. If Islam is able to take him down, then Islam will win. And like we all know, Volkanovski surprised everybody in the grappling, and Islam surprised everybody in the striking. The conclusion I had came to was Islam is not a better striker than Volkanovski, but he has the frame of a 155-pounder. Volkanovski doesn't. He has the frame of a 145-pounder. So having that size, that reach, mixed in with his very underrated striking, closed the gap between them. Well, after watching their rematch yesterday, I think the one thing we learned was Islam didn't have a very good game plan in that first fight. It wasn't a bad one by any means, but he didn't use his skills to the fullest in their first fight. As soon as their first fight started, Islam was fighting ultra-conservative. He was being very careful. He was circling away every time Volkanovski tried to enter into range so he could build up reads. Now, as the fight went on, the confidence in his striking began to build more and more, but his main game plan for the most part was to take Volk down and control him, which isn't a terrible idea. I recently made a problems with sambo and MMA video, and came to the consensus that sambo is the most overpowered background you could possibly have as an MMA fighter, and that it needs to get nerfed. Even though it's fake, it is the most overpowered. But here's where the issues arise. You see, Islam will never be able to finish the fight against Volk by taking him down. You see, what Islam's strengths are, and I've said this many times, he has high-level freestyle wrestling and very high-level judo. His positional game on the ground is world-class, but his submissions, they're not like a high-level jiu-jitsu guy, like Brian Ortega, like Charles Oliveira. Islam's submissions come from breaking his opponents down, gassing them out with his insane pressure on the ground, and then taking what they leave open. Or, in the case of Charles Oliveira, rocking him and then jumping on a submission. But Volkanovski, he's unbreakable. You can't gas him out. You will not break his will. He will not stop fighting. So Islam, he did do good work with the grappling in the first fight, but at the end of the day, he was expending a lot of energy trying to grapple with Volkanovski, while Volk, he's not going to gas out. He is going to match whatever pace you put on him. And as we saw, Islam, in the 5th round, he did gas out, and Volk almost got the finish. But as soon as their second fight started yesterday, you could tell Islam had a new strategy. If you fight from southpaw and you're fighting someone unorthodox, your left kick to the liver is always there. And in this matchup in particular, Volk, being so much shorter, he has a large gap he needs to cross to get into punching range. In their first fight, Islam would let him come in and try to find counters, which was working for him fine. But this time, he completely shut down Volkanovski's entries by just spamming that kick over and over again, keeping him at a range where Volkanovski could not attack him. And I knew from the second he started, he was setting up that high kick. He started with body kicks, then started throwing teeps, then leg kicks. As the shorter fighter, this is the most difficult thing you could possibly deal with, because with the smaller MMA gloves, you have a lot less protection keeping your guard up. When Islam did throw the head kick, Volk, he defended correctly. He had his hand right up against his cheek, but those small MMA gloves, it's not going to guard your entire head, and Islam snuck it right over the top. This new game plan he had, so good. Maintain your range, constantly spam kicks. The second Volkanovski tries to enter, just grab the tie clinch. Islam, so strong from the tie clinch, and Volk being shorter means the knees to the head are going to come a lot easier. The other big change Islam made was putting the pressure on Volk. He was not backing up this time. He was the one moving forward. And that just makes it that much harder for Volk to start finding his own entries. To be completely honest with you, after this fight, I know there's been a lot of talk of, well, Volkanovski, this fight was on short notice. He can definitely work his way back up to another title shot at 155 at some point. He certainly can. But there's some matchups at 55 that I just don't like Volk's chances at. Could you imagine Volk versus Dustin Poirier? I mean, Dustin Poirier, he is so good at countering. His boxing is amazing. And look what happened when he fought Max Holloway at 55. Every time Max Holloway tried to put the pressure on him and move forward, Dustin was just countering over and over and over again. Volkanovski being so much smaller, him trying to enter into range, I can see him just getting cracked over and over and over again. Other matchups, he's a bit more favorable, like against Charles Oliveira or even Justin Gaethje. I can see him doing better, but still, those are extremely tough fights for him. While at 145 pounds, he is just running through everybody. I do think Ilia Topuria is definitely not going to be an easy fight, but man, it's going to be a lot easier than fighting at 155. I don't know. I don't want to be too hasty, and I don't want to judge him too harshly. But something tells me Volkanovski, he's just not a 155-pounder.